Hey everybody, I got a game I want to show you where my opponent played like fantastic. Or at least I made them appear to play fantastic because like they just got a really smooth, clean attack and I didn't respect it, didn't know what to do about it, and it just looked effortless. So this came out of like a King's Indian attack, ready kind of thing. So we play this knight f3, d5, and after g3, we're just developing against this bishop and trying to just blunt it, hold this pawn here. We're going to try to put a pawn here. We develop our bishop outside the chain, and after this, we just get this nice looking center, and we have like kind of an equalish game already. So h3, we're going to drop back, and just normal standard development. And we put this bishop out, and then e4, and we trade here, and like we're trying to argue that this bishop looks a little bit silly. And if you look at the eval, like it already kind of likes black a little bit. We've got some really kind of clear ideas. Often we'll want to try to expand on this side. We have this idea of routing the knight around to f4 after g4 to kick our bishop. And we have a pretty comfortable game. So I castle, and my opponent develops. This is kind of a weird move. Like, why didn't you play bishop e3 in the first place if that's where you wanted to go? Anyway, we put the queen on here, so we defend this pawn, which is freeing this knight to move out. And now I drop back, and the knight comes to attack. After here, he just takes. And I thought this was like kind of awkward for him because like, why does he want to do that? Normally, people are playing the knight to f5, and we bring this knight, we bring this rook across, and this gives us access to the f8 square. We're going to drop back, and maybe after this knight f5, we put the bishop here so we can preserve the bishop. I like to do that. Maybe that's not strictly necessary. But he takes, which I thought was like kind of strange, but it turns out there's sort of an interesting point to it. And here he brings the queen out to f3, and I really didn't see the point. I thought this was kind of like a weird thing, because like, okay, fine, you can push the pawn. I put the knight on g5. What's the big deal? And so here I went bishop to c5. I wanted to try to do this maneuver, but I didn't want him to play knight takes. It turns out if I want to do this maneuver, probably it's better to go this way. That's the reason I moved the rook, if you remember. So, but I played bishop to c5, and now he brings the rook in, and I decided, I don't want to take. Like, this looks scary. It's actually apparently the best thing for me to do at this point, because I can just capture, and here, and I bring the knight to c5 anyway, and if you try to push my pawn, well, now I can go back to h6, and this queen is doing a nice job of defending, and I guess computer says there's just no real attack here. I mean, h4 comes, maybe I can come across to here to prevent h5 because I'll put some pressure on this. This is an idea we're going to look at later. But already I've gone a little bit astray with this bishop to c5. It's not really in the spirit of the position and not what I should be doing. So after he brings the rook to the center, I decide that like, I don't actually want to do this. So I play bishop to b4, thinking that like, aha, I'm going to force you to move the knight. But like, I'm basically forcing him to do exactly what he wanted. And a lot of this, what happens in going forward in this game, is just my ignorance of understanding what White's main attacking ideas are. And we're going to see them unfold really naturally. Like after this game, everybody's going to want to play the King's Indian attack. Until I show you later how to prevent all of this. So he brings the knight to e2, and the knight's going to come to g3, and after this pawn storm happens, he's going to get access to the f5 or the h5 square. So I play b5, just kind of like, haha, I'm going to go get my queenside counterplay. He plays a3, and I drop the bishop back to f8, because like, as Feingold says, always play bishop f8. f8's not where I want the bishop. The bishop belongs on e7. f8's for the knight. Anyway, so knight g3 happens, and like this is where I started to like scratch my head a little bit and like, maybe there's going to be some problems. I started to feel a little bit scared of what was going to happen when he rolls all these pawns, but I decided that like I didn't see any immediate blows. This knight g3 is annoying because after g5, I don't have knight f5 or knight h5 anymore. I'm going to have to go back to h7. So I played knight to c5, thinking that I'm going to give myself the d7 square to retreat to whenever he plays g5. And I like this idea of playing knight to a5 and attacking this pawn. And I thought, I'm going to get some counterplay, and that's going to distract from him from his attack, and everything's going to be hunky-dory. I mean, the position's still very much in the balance, but so g5 happens. I continue on with my plan. He pushes the pawn, And now I went ahead with my plan. I'm attacking on the queen side. He's attacking on the king side. I'm maybe going to win a pawn. He's going to win my king. Like, this is probably not a fair way of going about things. And you can tell what the eval bar is doing. It doesn't really approve of this either. So he plays b3, just kicks me out. And I dropped a knight back to b6, which is kind of an ugly square. It has no forward moves whatsoever. Even the d7 square is blocked. So the only move that this knight has is backwards to c8, and all because I thought I'm going to go win a pawn now. But I've moved this knight, which was prepared to go to e6. Now it's at b6, and like, it's at least 4 moves away. Is there even a path to get to the e6 square now? I guess I have to move this knight, come through c5, and come back. But you know what? He just continues on, and I'm like, woohoo, I got a pawn. I still didn't see an attack. I thought he would just take here, and then I would take back with this pawn, and like, I thought this was like solid enough, and that I would probably be okay. Turns out that's not exactly the case, but that's what I thought. But instead, he plays h6, which is like much stronger, because now, he doesn't keep control of these squares. My pawn gets to stay here. I felt like happy about that. But he's going to get these dark squares, which is not something I was really thinking about. So I dropped the bishop all the way back, just sort of hoping that he was going to capture here, but that's actually pretty ridiculous, because now he can push, and if I take it, he has here, and this is not good. This is trouble for me. Luckily, he didn't do that, but instead, he just brings the bishop. Notice that once these pawns have moved forward, all of a sudden we have a nice diagonal for the bishop. It's attacking this d7 square. Maybe we're going to get to bring a rook in at some point. Doesn't look like it now, but just wait. So I play knight to c5, and now the game is just over. The point is I wanted to be able to take back on g7 with my bishop, but after knight to c5, he takes, and I can't take with the bishop. I'm forced to take with the king. And now knight f5. This is an excellent move. I can't take it. I can't. I mean, I can, but like, this is ugly. The queen comes to h5. This bishop is coming to f5, and this is a checkmate, like on the spot. There's not a whole lot I can even pretend to do about that. So instead, I play king to g8. Now knight h6 happens, and like, things are looking ugly. I should just snap this guy off, though. I mean, that was probably my best option. It was better for him to take here first, then play here, and then come with the knight, because I can't take the knight now, obviously. And he has this threat of bringing the bishop here to blunt my queen, and then just playing here for a quick mate. But instead, he plays here immediately, and I missed the opportunity to take it. Or sorry, I didn't. I did take it, but now after it takes, I play here trying to get my queen in. But now he plays bishop c5 and distracts my queen out. His queen comes in. This is my only move, and now he plays this bishop d7 idea. And I don't really have anywhere good to go with my rook, I didn't think. And I'm just going to start dropping material like mad. So I took the bishop with the idea that after rook takes, I would play here and kick out the queen. But now just h7 happens, and like, this is game over. This is totally game over. And like, the worst part about this is like, it's all totally preventable. Although it looks a little bit awkward, but let's go back to here after queen f3 was played. And, I played bishop c5. And this is not what I ought to be doing. I want to blockade these pawns from moving forward. And if I can stop these pawns from moving forward, then white will never get an attack off the ground. And in fact, I might be the one attacking. Because, like, look at these dark squares. A lot of them are quite weak. I mean, g3 is not quite weak yet, but it has the potential to be there. I have a pretty firm control on f4 because of this pawn. No pawns are defending either of these squares. So knight to h7. Really strange looking and feels weird, but it's actually quite strong. And this knight's not going to sit on h7 forever. We're going to eventually bring it forward, but the point is this bishop on e7 is stopping, in help with the knight, stopping these pawns from moving forward at all. So say if white continues like normal, I can play knight to f8 now. Again, this looks strange, but my point is I'm using this f8 square to cycle around to e6. We don't have to just use the c5 square. I don't know why I have it in my head that I always have to go through c5, but like definitely not true. So we've done this weird thing with our knights where we've come back with both of them. And now if knight to e2, trying to go for the same sort of plan, we can bring our rook into the middle, contest the rook, contest the center. Note that like this is never a problem. You can't take this because b6 and we just win the piece. So knight to g3 and now knight to e6, touching this guy, adding additional control of this g5 square. Say he trades rooks. What else is he really going to do? If he can't advance these pawns, what are his pieces even doing? But now we have knight h to g5 hitting the queen. And there's like no way that white wants to play this because now he really has nothing on these dark squares. We have like total control. We're going to be able to plant a knight on f4 anytime we want. And I mean, we might be able to get counterplay over here as well. This is just ugly. Can't really allow this, but turns out there's really not much he can actually do about it. After a trade of rooks again, we bring our queen, and the queen drops out. Note that the queen couldn't really drop before. I mean, could technically, but you know we can still just play knight to f4 and get kind of exactly the same position we're going to get in the game. But trades, and now we bring the knight to f4, and he really can't take it, but he sort of has to, because if white takes the pawn, doesn't take the knight, we're just going to get a free pawn, like for nothing, like. But taking is no better because we get takes, and note that bishop's gone now, and the knight has to drop back, and now we get this f3 move, and the queen has to take, and now we get this with attack, and these guys are weak. Our queen is coming in, our bishop is coming in. You know, after king h2, like we have a phenomenal position here. We have the g5 square, or sorry, the f4 square, and the g5 square for our knight. Our bishop can come across. It can maybe switch to this diagonal. We can do some sort of like ring around the rosy thing where we put our queen in front. We have a lot of really nice ideas here, and white's attack never got off the ground at all. What's interesting is like I had more opportunities to go with this idea. So for example, even after I made all of these ridiculous moves with knight to a4 and you know all of this position, I let him get this far. If instead of playing knight to a4 going after this pawn, if I just recognize where my pieces need to be, I can actually just play bishop to e7, say h5, I go knight to e6, say he plays bishop h3, and now I can play knight back to df8, and I've huddled these knights around. You capture here, this is no problem. My knights are defending each other, I can take back with the pawn, and I can get this kind of a position, which I said earlier would have been defensible. Now, granted, I'm not better here, but like I'm still holding because I've kept my pawns on, or not my pawns, I've kept my pieces on the king side where they want to be. And yeah, I just thought that this was a really nice way of understanding what white's threats are, and then seeing a really clear way to counter them. And you can't counter your opponent's ideas unless you know what they are. And so I think it was really nice that my opponent like gifted me this like super clear, super clean attack. Really well done. If I had played this as white, I'd be really happy with myself. And but now I know what to do about it, and you do too. Thanks a lot, guys, and I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.